business analysis skills are like the most important to me. I can teach you a technology, right? At any point in time, you get a new app on your phone, you figure out what to do with it. Technology can be taught, but customer service and analysis skills are the number one for me.
My name's Tom Baldwin. This is Overruled by Data, the podcast for law firms looking to start their data journey or accelerate the journey they're already on. Brought to you by Integrata. Welcome, everybody. Today on Overruled by Data, we're joined by someone who's lived legal data from every angle. Law firm leader, tech vendor, and implementation strategist. Carrie Remhof is the director of firm intelligence at Troutman Pepper Locke, I got that right, where she's led an award-winning rollout of their data platform and experience systems. She's worked with over 30 law firms during her time at Latera, and now she's back in-house, turning insight into action. Today, we'll talk about what makes implementations work, why just starting matters more than perfection, and how AI is changing the way law firms understand themselves. Carrie Remhof, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Excellent. So you have an amazing background, and very few folks can talk from the perspectives that you have. So maybe you could start off by telling us a little bit of your paths from Wilmer to Latera, now Troutman. What have you taken from each chapter in that journey?
Yeah, absolutely. I can talk about my career a little bit. So I started first with the Fortune 500 company. I was a software engineer, right? Went to school for computer science. I'm like, I'm going to be a developer. This is going to be great. It's going to be fun. I worked for this Fortune 500 company that did printing. So that didn't last very long. But with it, as a software engineer, like I have all of those problem solving skills. And during that part of my career, I learned I like coding, but I also like people. So I had an opportunity to move in more of their sales operations group. So I started working with CRM. So I started with Salesforce.com. I'm like, this is really cool. This is really cool. This blending of my technical skills and my people skills to help my company. And then a recruiter popped up and it's like, hey, would you want to come work for legal? And I was like, sure, I'll give this a go.
You weren't turned on. I mean, I would think the initial reaction would be you.
I was like, I'll do something new. Why not? I mean, printing was dying. So
Fair.
So legal seemed like a good industry to get into. So joined a firm, took my CRM skills and implemented them at the law firm. So I took what we had with LexisNexis Interaction, I reshaped it, got attorneys in there using it. And then about a decade ago, all of a sudden this new tool popped up of experience management. I was like, hey, what is that? So it's where we learned, we want to capture, information about the experience the firm has done. So that's when we became an early adopter of Foundation.
And that was at Wilmer?
It was at Wilmer, yes. We were client number 9 of Foundation.
Wow,
so.
Very cool.
Yeah, very exciting. So we got to see it from the beginning, right, and kind of help shape the product into what it is today, which has been very exciting. So I spent a few years on that at Wilmer Hill, very excited. I got it implemented in 4 months, up and running, people using it. And then I reached a point where I just wanted to do more with Foundation. So I reached out to my great vendor, Foundation Software Group, and I was like, hey, I'd love to just spend more time with Foundation. And they jumped on it and they're like, yes, come join us, right? So I worked at Latera for 2 years. And I went there thinking, I know Foundation. This is going to be good. And I get there and I'm like, I know 20% of Foundation, right? I don't know the true support technical back end of things, but it was so exciting to come in and kind of reshape the way Latera was doing implementations. Because initially I went in there and they're like, we have a 254-step implementation plan. I was like, that is a lot to take in, for a new customer. So I worked to create work streams, right? So it turned into 7 work streams. Get your matter set up, get your clients set up, right? It was easier to understand, the 7 steps to get Foundation implemented versus the 254 steps. So with that, I was such a big advocate of Foundation and I loved really innovative firms that were doing really cool things with it. So when Troutman had an opportunity on their innovation team, I was like, that sounds so exciting to me because I'm such a proponent of Foundation and what it can do. And I think the most successful firms are the ones that treat it as a firm-wide platform and have a space for innovation. So 2 years ago when Troutman had an opening, I jumped. I was like, I want to join the leading firm,
Right.
Troutman Pepper.
And so, and that's interesting, your time, you started off very technical and you found sort of the unicorn role that allows you to flex your technical muscle, but also those people skills that not everyone technical has. If you were to give me like 3 sentences from each stop, Wilmer, Latera, and Troutman, looking back, what have you taken, just in a couple sentences from each of those roles?
Yeah, so definitely starting with Wilmer, there's such, a huge firm, right? And so such good advocates of their people, and they're ready to try new things, right? So I was very lucky there to be able to try something new, right? And try it quickly. So I was very lucky with getting foundation there. And then Latera, the best part of that was building the connections, right? I worked on about 30 different projects and I got to see 30 different ideas, 60 different ideas, right? To kind of think of all the possibilities that you can do with foundation. And then also see the struggles that firms have to think, okay, what are creative ways we can get around those struggles to get them moving forward? And then Troutman, my current role, what I've learned here is to innovate, right? Is to take it to the next level, right? So I've been on foundation for a decade. And now I'm like, what can I do more? Foundation is such a strong platform that I want to think, what more can I add to it? How can I complement it with other systems, right? And do what's best for Troutman.
So without naming names, the 30 firms, just to give me a range from the smallest firm in terms of lawyer headcount to the largest, ballpark.
So foundation is very focused on the AmLaw 100. So a lot of the firms are definitely in the AmLaw 100 piece. I would say at least 80% of who I worked with were in the AmLaw 100, then the other 20%.
Good. And so with that kind of framing in mind, what's something you saw, kind of sandwiched between two firms as a vendor that you wish more law firms, when they're exploring any kind of experience or CRM system for that matter, what would you want them to know going into it that maybe as a vendor you wish they had a better grip on out of the gate?
I think the best advice is that they need to do what's right for their firm. So many firms will start implementations and say, well, what should we do? Well, what do other firms do? You have to do what's right for your firm, right? You want a client industry list? What makes the best sense for your firm? Make a decision. Know that it's the firm that makes the decision. Sure, you can understand what other people are doing, but ultimately do what's right for your firm.
Did you find that there wasn't always a strong use case kind of right out of the gate?
I did find some of that, right? And then so many times they think the technology is going to fix the business process, which is classic.
Fair.
Yeah. So with that, sometimes I would push back even as the vendor and say, we can't move forward in this until you've defined a business process, right? Because so many people just want to build a million fields of like, oh, attorneys are going to fill this out. No, they're not. No, they're not going to fill out 100 fields. You'll be lucky if they do 2 fields, right? So come up with that business process of when do you know that piece of information in the matter life cycle to go get it.
And I don't know if this would be a repeat of what you just said, but when you think about the mind shift that firms need to take when adopting and trying to build out a successful platform like Foundation, what would you say is the biggest shift in mindset they have to take?
I think the shift is very much looking internally, right? To say, okay, I'm not going to hit all practice groups from the start, right? I can't. I can't do all 25 of them, right? I'm going to focus on the ones that have a good business process, the ones that are eager, the ones that want to get in it and do it. And maybe it's only 2 or 3 practice groups that you start with, right? Because they want to do it. They have top level commitment to get it done. You work with those, you're successful, and then you have your success stories to sell internally to other practice groups, right? Because lawyers love competition, right? So all of a sudden this practice group that sits down the hall from you has this cool new tool that you don't. Well, that's going to be more compelling than me giving another demo of Foundation.
Fair. Switching gears a little bit. So now you've taken on this new role as director of firm intelligence, and we're seeing more firms adopt a title that's akin to this. Tell us a little bit about what that means at Troutman and how does it differ from the stuff you've done in the past?
So I'm excited about my new role. So what my team does for firm intelligence, while I talk about foundation the most, there's other tool sets we use as well and support. But the main purpose of our team is connecting insight across the firm. So one thing we like to do is all the pardon the interruption emails that come through, we get copied on all of them. And we try to lead somebody to technology, right? Whether it's, find me someone who's worked with this mediator. Maybe the answer is foundation. Maybe the answer is courtroom insight, right? We try to lead them to the right space, or we try to triage and kind of push them in the right spaces they need to go. Maybe they need to go to the research team, right? We kind of collaborate to get people to the right answers as quick as we can.
So it sounds like in a lot of ways, you're the sort of information concierge for the lawyers.
Very much so. How do we quickly find expertise, right? Find me someone who's worked with this judge, right? Find me someone who's done a FICRA case, right, in Indiana. Like, we try to lead people to that information.
And do you see, as I mentioned earlier, we are seeing more firms, either sort of dust off or reinvigorate this role at their firm. Do you feel like this is a trend that's happening, or is it just a few very progressive firms?
I feel like it's a little bit of both. So I know AI is the big trend, but to me, you really need strong data behind that AI to make decisions, right? I need to have strong experience data to find out who's linked to who, right? I can't just ask Google, right? Google isn't going to know. So it's important for me to make sure we have a sound structure of our experience data. And then also with that too, I feel like it is progressive firms, right, that give an open space to allow for us innovation and to try things, to fail fast, right? And be open to trying new things.
Right. Yeah, we'll talk about that failing fast in a second, which is a good segue. In my world, I hear more often than anything else that, our data is not great. We need this lengthy data strategy, which I used to write many of these in my prior life. Mm-hmm. And it feels like that's where firms get stuck. And so for firms stuck in we need a perfect data strategy loop, what would your message be? Again, someone who's lived both sides of this coin.
My message is start small, right? I don't have to boil the entire ocean before I get in a boat, right? I say start somewhere. Like, even Troutman has had foundation for 8 years. Like, we've had master data for like over a decade. We can always sharpen the pencil and make it better. And we focus on pieces, kind of one quarter at a time. Like right now, we're focused on client data. Is what we decided 8 years ago what we need? No. Okay, well, let's stop and fix it. But we try to stay focused on a particular project, get that kind of cleaned up, versus trying to fix all the things at once, because we're never going to get any of it done. Right, we're going to have 100 projects at a status of 1%. Oh, we're moving it all forward, but really slow, right? So whereas if I pick kind of 3 main projects to focus on, that helps my team focus, it helps IT focus. Like, let's work on what we are focused on today. And then, okay, sure, there are 97 other things to work on, but put them in the parking lot.
Right.
Come back to them in the next quarter.
Well, this goes back to something you said earlier, which I think overlaps quite nicely, which is the notion that when you were at Foundation, you really wanted to have a strong business case before you got started, not just tell me what other firms are doing. And I think similarly, if you take a step and zoom out and look at data more broadly, you also need to have sort of an outcome in mind. And maybe it is, I want to tidy up my client list. I want to know what a client what does a client mean at firm X, right? Or maybe it's my people data. I just want to have, reliable data for something as simple as people's first and last name and have a definition for what FTE means. Mm-hmm. That can be it. So I love that sort of connection, because in the world that we live in, we see the same problems. You need to start small. in working in a law firm, I think we also get stuck in this paradigm of like everything has to be perfect. You know, you can't send out an email with a typo, more or less have work product with mistakes. And yet in data, we kind of have to live in that space where we know it's not going to be great from the start. You know, how do you set expectations with leadership to just tell them, hey, look, the data is going to be messy. We're cracking open the shed in Aunt Gertrude's backyard that hasn't been open for 30 years. There's going to be some things back there that none of us expect. And be okay with that. Like, have you done that at firms and places you've worked at?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it really comes to that message of innovation, right? Of, like you said, this is the first time we've opened the door to the shed, right? So one thing I teach my team, right? If we send an answer back to an attorney saying, hey, this is what we found. And if all of a sudden they quickly respond, well, this doesn't include this, this, or this, right? And it's so quickly to get like, oh, I didn't do it right. No, we flip it. I'm like, oh, he looked at what I sent. Like, he notified me that I was missing something. And then we look at it as an opportunity, right, to reach out and say, okay, we are missing data. Well, where could we get it from? And then that educates, the practices of like, yes, we want to have more data, right? But I can't get it out of the attorney's head, right? So maybe there's a data source we can use, or there's a new business process we can use, because the data will never, ever be perfect. And I'm not going to wait for that either.
Waiting for that you'll be waiting a long time.
Exactly. Like, I want to move things forward and be successful, along the way.
So in your 30 plus foundation deployments, what separates the successful ones from the unsuccessful ones?
I think the successful ones are the ones that have a clear definition of what they are trying to accomplish with the tool. Some of it roll into it and they're like, I want to do everything, right? I want to start with chamber submissions. And I'm like, let's get your clients and matters in there first, right? Like, let's focus on getting your core data in there. So the ones that really have those defined use cases of this is what I'm going to do with it. And also avoid data hoarding, right? Because so many times firms will be like, I just want everything from everywhere. Well, Foundation is a platform with a specific purpose, right? Let's put things in there that really align with experience and keep it core to what that system is meant to do.
When you say data hoarding, what do you mean by that?
Oh, like they want everything from the CRM. Like I watched one firm turn on their CRM connection, brought in all 700,000 contacts into Foundation. Some of them were dead. Some of them, were 25 years old. Some of them haven't even been on a mailing list, right, in 25 years. So it's like, be mindful and thoughtful about what you want it to do versus just bringing everything for the sake of everything.
Yeah. And so now here you are, you land at Troutman armed with all this experience at Wilmer, all the 30 plus implementations at Foundation. What made the deployment different at Troutman?
So coming into Troutman, so Foundation was seasoned. At Troutman, there was a great start to it. They've always been, a great innovator with Foundation. But the part that was most exciting to me was to come in and revamp it, because the platform has changed in a decade, right? So there's new features, right, that weren't turned on, because it's so easy to like see a release note, move on with your day, right? And don't think about all the features that are available. And then it was also coming in and rethinking the way we were capturing data. So while the intent, let's say 5 years ago, is an associate's going to go fill out this piece of information that they never did, right? So let's sharpen it up, right? How can we get litigation in there? So we built the Matter connector with Courtroom Insight of like, hey, come get me docket information and pull it in. Just get more creative and thoughtful about using Foundation.
To me, that's always been sort of the biggest cheat code you could have with any experience deployment is acknowledging that you're not going to get the data from lawyers for a variety of reasons, and find a third-party feed you trust and that you can pipe in and, literally overnight add judge, parties, outcomes, jurisdictions to tens of thousands of matters that you'd never retroactively get. People overlook that a lot. So I'm glad that you're leaning into that. You called it in our prep call hybrid profiling, Carrie. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, we do, because the original intent was attorneys were going to go fill out these 15 fields about litigation type matters, where I've skinned it up. I'm like, if you could give me the case number and the court, I can go get the rest from LexisNexis or Docket Alarm. I can go mine and get that data and bring it in and update it nightly. So it becomes a hybrid of, they still have to provide some information. You have to link external, like unique identifiers to our internal client matter numbers, but it's quicker.
And you'd advocated sort of pick 3 use cases and get those dialed in. What were those at Troutman?
Yeah, so when I started, the use cases were litigation, which we talked about. The second was the proposal module. So while Troutman had it, it wasn't working. Like the templates weren't good, right? Just no one had quite adopted that piece of the tool. So with our merger that went live January 1st, Troutman Pepper Locke now, I was excited because I treated it as just a brand new implementation, right? All of a sudden I have a 600 attorney firm that is joining me, right? So I leveraged it to say, guys, the neighbors are coming over. We got to clean this up, right? So I was like, we can't have, a dirty house in here. So I took the opportunity to kind of clean up, sharpen the pieces of foundation around proposals, right? Let's skinny it up on like, what are the pieces of opportunity tracking that we really want to capture? And then we rewrote all the templates, right? So we worked with Latera to get new templates, branded Troutman Pepper Locke, went live with the use cases on, okay, here's how you get people data out. Here's how you get content pieces out. So that was a really fun use case to me. And I love treating it like a new implementation. I also took the opportunity to redo all of our training materials because the videos we recorded 5 years ago aren't relevant anymore. Like we're a different firm. So, and everyone's so comfortable with technology now. I skinnied it up. I was like, I don't need a 10-page document. Like people know what an add new button is, right? Add new, right? Everyone has a smartphone with 85 apps on it. Like we can take out some of the how to use technology pieces.
That's interesting. I hadn't thought about that. I bet there's a lot of legacy, quick reference cards or other training materials that could use a refresh and get a bit more skinny down. That's a great idea. Mm-hmm. Speaking of the merger, you all did something, we talk about AI in lots of like whiz bang ways and we hear about all the amazing things. You all used it for something pretty practical that helped streamline the integration process. And even though it's not like something you're going to win an award for, I think it's a pretty novel use. It just goes to show the creativity you all take when thinking about how to use AI. Maybe you could just share a little bit about what you all did with Attorney Images.
Yeah, for sure. So when the merger came up, there's a shortened time period, like there's a deadline. January 1 was it. So we had to meet the deadline. So our graphics team, they got creative of like, okay, there's 600 Locke Lord attorneys that we have to bring in with 1,000 Troutman attorneys, and we need one brand and one voice. And we needed our images to look the same. Do you all of a sudden ask, every Locke attorney to sit down and get a professional photo done for $250 minimum? Well, we found a really cool design firm in New York that was able to take all of our images, use AI to get them all to the same branded look, right? So everyone has the office behind them. It's a rectangle now. It used to be a square, right?
Sizing images is a headache if you've not ever dealt with that. It's a nightmare.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So the attorney bios, that was a big win for us, right? Of get AI to fix it. And then there's probably 20%. Okay, yeah, somebody really did need a new, headshot, right? The 90s was a long time ago. It's time to update. We also did that with our tombstone images. Again, promoting the proposal generator piece of foundation. If I could get my new Locke Lord associates to start using Foundation, which is a platform they've always wanted, but they never had, well, let me take your 400 tombstone images and load them into Foundation. But again, they're different. They're rectangles. They're not squares. So Latera came up with a really creative way to use a PowerPoint macro right? So put in AI, write me a PowerPoint macro that will resize things to this, adding white space where I need it. So we were able to quickly reshape all of those images to load back into Foundation.
Amazing. Amazing. Carrie, the other thing we talked about was, hey, you went through this big merger, and a lot of folks would love to learn sort of what, to the extent you can share, what was the biggest lesson learned post-merger, especially moving, matter coverage and visibility and all that kind of good stuff?
Yeah, I think the best thing I learned was to really focus in on one piece at a time. So I talked about the tombstone, like migration to start with. So our tombstones have 8 fields to them. Okay, I am going to call it a success that I got the 8 fields in. I recognize there's probably some more experience fields I could get in, but I had a 3-week window, right? So it was like, let me get the tombstone piece in. And then I'll come back and say, okay, within that tombstone, it's telling me a deal value, it's telling me, the acquirer, right? Again, we do things in chunks, right? Of like, let's get the tombstone in, get it focused, be ready for day 1, January 1. And then we created some spin-off projects to work in Q1 and Q2. Okay, let's go back and like load data in a different way.
If you were to advise another firm, like we know in the news right now that's about to go through the same process, what advice would you give them?
I would advise them to look at, at both sides, right? At both firms, and understand at the end of this, you are an entirely new firm, right? So I didn't want it to be, this was the Troutman way versus this was the Locke way. I brought them in early. We met weekly. Tell me your concerns. Tell me where your data is. Let me do some show and tells. Like, I know you can't get in the systems yet, but let's work on this stuff together. Like, it's really a partnership to come in to recognize at the end of the day, we're Troutman Pepper Locke now. We're a different firm with different branding, different opportunities.
And whether it's a post-merger or just in general, why do you think some data projects, and I'm using that term specifically, not just experience projects, but data projects, why do you think some data projects struggle? What do you think is often the root cause of that?
I think we lack measuring success of a project, right? If you don't know what your end goal is, it's hard to get there, right? Because data, it's like an octopus, right? Like it's got many tentacles, right? You think you're working on this tentacle, but you're really over here. It's so easy to like end somewhere else, that I think if upfront, if you set, this is what success looks like. We have a common view of our clients, right? We're able to pull a list of clients with their industries, right? Together as a whole holistic approach.
Yeah. And it also gets back to something we talked about earlier, having that sort of, use case in mind. And it doesn't have to be big. I think that's the other thing, that people take a really big bite at the apple when you can start small. You've talked about fostering a culture of innovation. What does that mean, at the firm? And is there any difference between innovation at a firm and innovation at a place like Latera?
Yeah. So innovation at a firm, like law firms are very, conservative. Like we're always avoiding risk, right? That's the whole point of having a law firm. There's like some collaborative pieces you can work on together with an attorney, but I just find it all boils down to communication. Like, we are experimenting with this. This is what we expect to come out of it. This is how I'm going to measure success from my innovative project, right? And kind of lead them to what you are trying to do, the purpose of what they're doing, but give the caveat of like, this is a draft. We're starting it. We're exploring it. Right? So tell me if you don't like it.
Yeah.
Right? Look for that constructive feedback coming back.
Setting the expectations, I think, is so crucial. And, as a follow-up to that, I think it's hard. Not every firm is able to embrace this concept of fail fast, fail cheap. How did you create an environment where that was okay?
I mean, luckily that environment was there when I joined. So our fearless leader, Will Gauss, has really created that environment within the firm, that we are lucky, right? So we started with Athena, 2 years ago, right? It was the first, chat GPT inside of a law firm. And again, it was put out there as, something to experiment with. And now we're in it every day, trying new technologies and using it, we're actually building out some Athena skills over top of foundation, which is very exciting. So while I'm trying to capture data in a structured system, well, I want people to be able to put natural language over top of it to find what they need.
One of the trends that I've heard from a few guests on the show is that they're starting to look at traits more so over titles, where curiosity and flexibility are more important than someone's, bullet points on a resume. Talk to us about how that kind of came about and how you're using that in practice when you're looking at candidates.
Yeah, absolutely. I find it's more important to have those customer service skills and those curiosity skills of like, it's really around that core like business analysis skills, right? I want to be able to ask questions. I want to listen, right? Because when somebody comes to us with, hey, I'd like, this tool to do this. Well, it's easy to quick maybe go set something up. But I always ask my team, go meet with the person, find out what they're trying to do, have them share their screen, right? Look at what they're doing, because maybe what they've asked you in a one sentence in an email isn't really what they need. So when I look for candidates, I look for business analysis skills, like how do you relate to people? How do you find empathy as well? Because even Locke Lord coming in, they have brand new systems. They have brand new jobs, right? Coming in on day one. So we have to be able to meet them where they are, right? So we've done foundation forever, but it's day one for them, right? Let's give it to them in pieces. So business analysis skills are like the most important to me. I can teach you a technology, right? At any point in time, you get a new app on your phone, you figure out what to do with it. Technology can be taught, but customer service and analysis skills are the number one for me.
Yeah, fair. Speaking of Athena and AI, what excites you, kind of switching gears here, what excites you about how AI can improve, either external client service or internal workflows and service requests?
Yeah, I'm excited that AI and Athena can get people to make decisions more quickly, so we can put more natural language searching on top of our existing data and expose it faster, right? So someone doesn't have to know, I have to go to foundation, I have to hit advanced search, I have to know these, I have to have a PhD in search to get,
The search interface is a little sophisticated, I'll just say, in foundation, yes.
So we're coming up with just common use cases on what we get, right? To quickly find, like our best example with the merger is you have two different firms with a different set of lawyers. Well, I don't know anyone, right? So find me someone, that can help me. So it's a quick way of connecting people, right? I can quickly search for someone based on what they have written in their biography, right? If they say it in their biography, they're probably pretty good with it. So I can locate and find somebody quickly with that information.
Is there anything that makes you a little nervous about adoption of AI in legal?
I just worry people are going to make decisions without really verifying. You still need a gut check. Like, is this really helping me? So that's why I'm trying to be like very focused, right? Let me give you like good use case. Like, I'm not going to give you all of foundation in Athena because Lord knows what it's going to come back with, right? But if I give you a common use case of like, hey, find me an attorney that does this, that's a quick ask.
And what do you think firms' biggest blind spots are when they think about their own data?
I think the blind spot is being able to let things go.
What do you mean by that?
So many peer firms, right, that I talk to even today, they are waiting so much for perfection. An example I have is we worked with getting our matters linked up to our litigation cases. We worked with Courtroom Insight. They did some AI to kind of match us, right? They got us 80% there. I demoed this to another peer firm. I was like, hey, it's really great. They got us 80%. And they're like, well, we can't do this until we're 100%. And I'm like, I am 80% farther than I was. I was like, let's move it forward, right? So sometimes I think the blind spot is the perfection. I'm going to wait for all risk to be removed before I move forward with this. And what I recognize in my career, even at a law firm, is I can move forward with things, right? So my role is data firm intelligence. I'm not work product. I'm not giving it to a client, right? So it's a little bit of a different lens.
Yeah, the risk factor is a little less severe, right? It's not like if you accidentally publish or file a brief with the court that has a case cited that's not a real case. It's a little different than we are directionally off by a couple matters on a report and foundation.
Exactly.
Stakes aren't as high. Cool. Well, hey, last few questions I have for you. Is there a book or a podcast or an idea you've been returning to as of late?
I've been following Allison Fergali. She did the ILTA Women's Conference this year, and it was all about being a badass, but like still being nice, right? Because I'm Midwestern nice, right? But I also like want to give myself the ability to be a badass, right? Like I can talk about my experiences. I can be proud of what I've done, but also be a nice person and help somebody else.
The two don't need to be mutually exclusive, 100%. Who in legal innovation or data do you think more people should be paying attention to? Besides yourself, of course.
Oh, please. I would look to some of those like more traditional legal tech places. So like LexisNexis, I know it's like a behemoth, right? But they are being very creative, with their APIs, and they're open to new ideas of how to share their data. I think they've realized not everyone's going to pull data from their user interfaces. So I love that they're collaborating and sharing more information through technology.
Awesome. Carrie, that's it for the show. If people want to follow up with you directly, what's the best way to connect with you?
LinkedIn. Find me.
LinkedIn. You got it. Awesome. Thank you so much, Carrie. That's a wrap for this episode of Overruled by Data. If this podcast resonated with you, if you took one or two things away from it, you want to hear more from law firm leaders that have been there and done that, hit the follow button.